Hello, hello. Welcome to the play that changed my life, brought to you by Harbinger and Open Stage Media. My name is Patrick White, and I have two fantastic guests with me here today, and we want to continue the conversation we've been having off camera, so let's get to it. With me today is Steven Patterson from Bridge Street Theatre in Catskill. Hi, Steven. Welcome.
Greetings, Patrick.
Yeah. And over here is Dan Slavin, who has got a show going up tonight.
That's right.
Tonight, Dual Plan.
That's right. Dual plans.
Excellent, with Company of Curiosities up in Glens Falls. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasher to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. And I love what you guys are doing here. This is awesome.
Oh, thanks. We'll see how you feel in an hour.
Perfect.
So we were just batting around topics before we got on, before we came on camera here. So Dan, welcome. You sent me an email last week, and here you are.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself.
So I grew up in Glens Falls. Well, my father was in the military. We moved all around when I was a kid, but we settled in Glens Falls. Before that, I grew up in Kentucky, so I have a little southern drawl. Came up here, was very disappointed there wasn't as much sweet tea readily available, but I'm still getting over it. So since then, I grew up in Glens Falls, loved the theater community, did like Lake George Youth Theater and all the school shows, everything, and I could never stop. And so shortly after college, my parents wouldn't let me go for theater, but I went to the University of Rochester where there's no gen ed requirements. So I studied business, but everything that wasn't for business was dance or theater or music or something cool. So that was fun. And after that, I became an insurance agent. That didn't super work for me. Didn't love that. And then I briefly worked at the Wood Theater for about a year and a half, and I was like, I want to be on the stage. So about 8 years ago, I started auditioning for regional theaters out in New England, and I started booking things and haven't really looked back. I've been lucky to say that over the last 8 years, the vast majority of my paychecks have come from performing, which is very cool. But last summer, I had a terrible car accident, and still in physical therapy for it, and it's a whole thing, but I kind of have been on a hiatus since then, and so I've been writing more, and now I have a little film that we're doing this summer that I also have adapted to be a play that we're doing a reading tonight, so hopefully it'll be cool and fun by the time you guys see this, that we'll have good reviews and stuff, but if not, don't worry about it. Never look into it again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like this feeling of transformation.
Yes.
Taking opportunities where they come.
Yeah, getting into the performing side, I was always of the belief that, like any job, I wanted to kind of start on lower things and build a resume before I started shooting, into New York for auditions and stuff, and that really worked for me. And I also was very lucky. I got to work as a singer at a resort for a couple years, and that was good money, and it's kind of like a cruise on land, so it was very fun. And we had shops and a casino and stuff, and we'd do shows. It was fun, but it gave me time to start writing, and that was about 3 years ago. I started working on scripts, and now that's kind of where I'm pivoting towards more of the creation side and less of the performance side. We'll see how it goes. If not, maybe I could fall back on performing. Is that something anyone's ever said in their life?
I've always got lounge singer in me.
Hey, yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Steven Patterson, we've known each other for years.
Yeah.
Do you remember our first contact?
Oh, God, no.
You mentioned it earlier when you did To Kill a Mockingbird at Capitol Repertory Theater. I shot you a note. Do you remember this? And I said...
Just about what a slime ball I was?
Yes. Yes, you played
Bob Yule.
Bob Yule, and I sent him a note in the early days of Facebook saying, you can reach out and say anything to anyone. And I said, I loved your portrayal and the way that you looked at the audience and implicated all of us in your...
Wow.
Villainy.
Sweet.
Yeah. And then I auditioned for you a couple of times. You had Caliuga Arts. I saw you down at Stageworks Hudson.
Over in Hudson.
Yeah, did some fantastic productions there, Mound Builders. And then you created this theater in Catskill. And I've been a fan
Well, yeah, when we moved back here to New York, we knew we wanted to continue doing theater. John and I have been producing together since '86, wherever we lived. We were in L.A. for 5 years. We were in San Francisco for 14 years. Did several years in New York City. Also, while we were going back and forth between Catskill and New York, built our house in Catskill. It was finished in about 2008, and that's when we moved up here on a permanent basis. Then started doing stuff over at Stageworks in Hudson. We'd rent the theater out there. John was doing some work with Laura on their play-by-play, their annual 10-minute play series. Worked on a couple of those, but we wanted to do something over on our side of the river, and there wasn't anything. We came up to this area, number one, after moving to Manhattan, because I'd worked up here in the mid-'70s. In 1977.
Lexington?
At Lexington, at the Conservatory Theater up there that was there. It was there from 76 to 80, and then the company migrated to Albany and formed Cap Rep.
Yeah.
So, I worked in the company in 1977 there, and loved the area. When we moved to the city, we didn't have enough room for all of our stuff in our 400 square feet. So we said, let's see if we can find some property upstate. Greene County at that time was, and still is in a lot of ways, far, far less expensive than a lot of the surrounding counties. Yeah. It was far enough away from the city and far enough away from Albany that it wasn't really a bedroom community. So the property values there were a lot less expensive. So we bought a little 10-acre lot with a storage unit on it, winterized that, and then eventually built the house, and wound up here on a permanent basis. And we drove by the building where Bridge Street is now. For a couple of years on our way to the gym on Main Street, and going, I wonder, because it was for sale for a long time. This was just a derelict building. It was being used as a book depository, I think, for medical books. These guys had a mail order business, and they go pull them off the shelf and stick them in the post office. But we eventually finally went, let's just call the number. And we called the number, went in and looked at it and went, well, this is going to take a lot of work, but it had elements of everything that we thought we would need in order to be able to create a theater complex. And that's how it worked out.
Yeah. And since have done incredible shows, won numerous Berkeys.
Yeah.
For one-man shows. For,
yes. Well, and for mostly also for some of our classic shows.
I was getting to that.
I'm still impressed with the 400 square foot to 10-acre upgrade. That's amazing.
Oh, well, the other thing that was really, really crazy was, moving to New York, we had bought this little, tiny apartment there, and we bought this 10 acres, and it was basically costing us exactly the same.
Yeah, and you got to see this house. Oh. This isn't just a house.
Yeah.
It's not actually built on a tree.
No,
but it looks like a tree. Yeah. No, it
looks like a suspended tree house.
I need to see this. That's amazing.
It's very, very bizarre. I mean, John, my husband John, who's the artistic director at our theater, is also a designer. He does a lot of our sets, not all of them, but he had a dream when he was a kid about this hexagonal house, this six-sided house that had little pods leading out to it, to other little rooms, and then like an underground grotto that had a lake. And so when we decided we were going to build up here, he went, let me see if I can just draw something up that, is sort of an affordable version of that dream I had when I was a kid. And so he did that. Turned it over to an architect, so it wouldn't fall over in 6 weeks. And it really worked out. Yeah, so it's six-sided.
Oh my gosh.
When we first built it, it's all cedar shakes on the exterior. It really looked like a UFO had landed. But now, over the course of the last almost 20 years now, it's really, really weathered, so it really feels like it's part of the environment now.
That's amazing. I definitely want to see a picture.
It's pretty crazy. It's a crazy house.
We're gonna drop that in. I love it. Someone had mentioned to me something about, I don't know, whatever the hell I was doing, and I was like, yeah, but up here I get the opportunity because no one cares. Like you just put your hand up and you say, oh, I'll review shows, and it's like, now I'm writing for 3 different publications, and and it's like, but you get the opportunity and you can just plant your flag and say, and with a ton of work. But
we consider ourselves so lucky that we're nearby enough here in the Capital Region, because there is no press really down in Ulster or in Greene. No reviewers, no nothing, no coverage of that kind. So we're sort of right on the edge of where the reviewers are able to come down from the Capital Region to see our stuff. And almost all of our reviews now, other than you and occasionally Bob Geffert does stuff for us, most of our reviews are coming from the Berkshires, and about a good portion of our audience now is making an hour and 15-minute drive to come see the stuff that we do.
But it's half an hour for us.
Yes.
Yes. No, it's as close as Schenectady from downtown Albany, and people, people look at April. Anytime you have to cross the river,
that's
like,
always that's.
It's like it's so far away.
Even crossing the river from Hudson has always been hard. Getting people from the mountaintop up in Hunter down to Catskill is really hard because they're going down that really twisty clove road. Yeah. And, particularly in the wet months or the icy months, that, you don't exactly want to be driving those roads at night.
I saw his house actually during an audition, and I had to drive up that road during the snow. And so my audition was sort of like,
I'm a little tense.
So, growing up in Glens Falls, you come down to the Albany to see theater, or you had the Lake George Theater? And I just heard about this and was talking. I met a couple of people when the Glens Falls did a huge production of the Cemetery play.
Spoon River.
Yes, thank you. Ding, ding, ding. 10 points to Gryffindor.
What is Spoon River, Pat?
Yes, the Cemetery play. Spoon River Anthology, and they asked all these special guests in, so there were like 40 of us backstage walking on.
That's amazing. That must have been when I wasn't here. I because I've been gone so long, I missed so much. But growing up in Glens Falls, I didn't travel much for theater. If I did, I would go down to the city and see like Broadway, but I didn't know there was such a scene here until I got old enough that I could start going to kind of Proctor's and stuff on my own and driving me and my friends. That was kind of my only experience in this area of seeing theater, was like seeing tours. And now that I'm older and know that there's so many amazing venues and artists in this area, it's like I just got back and I'm like, I have so much catching up to do. I got to meet all these people and go to all these places. But for me back then, it was mostly ATF, a lot of exposure with them. They used to give, as I mentioned, I was in Lake George Youth Theater, and that was an amazing little program for us, and intensive, kind of learned to do stuff in rep at 11 years old for some kids. Crazy. But doing that, they would give us ATF tickets. Like ATF would give free tickets to us. So I got to see a lot of their shows, and that was always very cool. And that was back when they were doing a lot of, I think they did Tick Tick Boom, and they did Avenue Q, and a bunch of like big Broadway shows. Now they're doing more of the new theater stuff, and I think that's awesome too. Yeah,
Miriam Weisfeld was at a reading. Next Act had their reading series, and they did a play about the Glens Falls Post. Is that what it's called? The paper? I don't know.
The Chronicle, or
the Chronicle?
There's the Post Star.
I think it was the Post-Star. Ken Tingle, I believe, is the playwright's name. I'm going to murder all of this. And the play was called The Last American Newspaper. Ooh. And it was a part of Next Act, which is a new play development and readings. And Miriam Weisfeld, who is the artistic director of Adirondack Theater Festival, is also announced as the managing artistic director of Capitol Repertory Theater. She's going to do both.
That's
so
awesome.
Glens Falls and Albany have come together in that way. And one of the founders of Adirondack Theater Festival, Martha Banta, was there on Tuesday night, and I hung out with Martha Banta. We kind of had like concentric circles back in the 90s in New York City. Yeah, so it was...
It's
yeah,
an
it was-
incestuous little business.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? Don't you love it? Don't you love it? It gets smaller and
It's crazy, you know, and I've noticed that even when I do some little show, you know, last year I did a show, you know, like Plymouth, Massachusetts has a great little summer stock theater that I did a show. I did Escape to Margaritaville. I played the old man with the eye patch, and the whole staging of it was the audience was always on the side with the eye patch. I felt like I was doing a show. People would laugh. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's people here. I never saw them." Like, but
it enhanced your Meisner sense of
I was
privacy.
really in that moment.
You had privacy.
But you know, you meet people. It's like, oh, you worked with this person, and I was working with them in West Virginia, or like I worked with them in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
I love it.
That small, it really is a small business
Yeah.
for how big it is.
Yeah, and you know, talking about distance, and you know, Glens Falls is only an hour away. You know, if I was living in Queens, it'd take me an hour to get to BAM or St. Anne's.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, it's the same difference.
On the
Absolutely.
subway.
Yeah,
right.
And then you fall asleep and you're at the end of the line.
That's been a nightmare of mine since I was a little kid and saw like the horror, like cartoons would do horror episodes where like, oh no, the subway stopped, and it's like I remember an episode of Hey Arnold gave me nightmares. It's like, oh no, I'm never gonna ride the subway ever in my life.
The thing about traveling, though, is that you and this should be true if it is around the corner. You know, to get people out of their house, you got to do something that's worth their time. And it's great to have all these destinations, but you really have to. I know Depot Theater, 2 hours north. Yep. Yeah. They're doing Radiant Vermin by Philip Ridley this summer. And I was like, I want to see that.
Going to that,
The
absolutely.
Rev Theater in Auburn, they're doing Bonnie and Clyde this summer. And Chris and I are like, never seen that.
Never
It's
had a
got some
chance
great
to see
music.
it.
I
So,
know that. Yeah.
yeah.
So, and, you know, Catskill has this niche of diverse plays, Long Day's Journey into Night, Glass Menagerie, extraordinary productions, and then new plays.
Which is where our hearts really are, I think. You know, we love brand new stuff and really bringing stuff to life that has never been done before. And we're so excited to see so many, with the explosion in the small theater scene that's been happening up here in the Capital Region. We're really excited to see that so many of them are also really, really committed to doing new and interesting plays rather than the same old stuff that you would think, in old school thought, oh, community theaters do Arsenic and Old Lace.
Yeah.
Sure.
And no.
Chris's
They're doing
favorite
exciting new stuff.
Yeah.
Now-
That's Chris's favorite example. Whenever he talks about community theater, he'll bring up
Arsenic and Old Lace.
See, I always think
Yes.
of like Oklahoma. Like that's where my brain goes.
Well, there are a couple of theaters doing Oklahoma
That's
this
where
summer.
that to me is like standard. If you're in a community theater, you'll do Oklahoma at some point.
At
in
some
it.
Yeah, but Oklahoma is also, a revolutionary musical.
Oh my gosh!
Absolutely.
Did you see their the one they redid a few years ago with like a small
Yeah.
band? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But what I find, and I would love to pick your brains on this. What I found, I noticed it when I was in college. I was in this really, really talented a cappella group. They're called the University of Rochester Midnight Ramblers. A little shout out to them. If you guys ever are like a cappella, check out their stuff. They're amazing. I got to do amazing things. I performed with like Andy Grammer, and they were with Ben Folds, and like all these big things for a cappella. Weird, right? But when I did that, my first year, we would sell out our show as soon as we announced it. The next day, it'd be sold out. By my senior year, we were having to not beg, but a week after tickets were on sale, we'd be like, "Hey guys, are you coming? Can people buy tickets?" And we would hypothesize what's the cause, what's changed, and I truly believe it's YouTube and Netflix. Those kind of were becoming a thing when I was in college, so that people would go, "Oh, we're just gonna stay in our dorm and watch Netflix tonight." And it was the first time I noticed that, it's getting harder to get people out of their house.
Yeah.
Do you guys find that here? Is that why new plays are becoming more of a thing? Because, hey, I can watch the Broadway production of Shrek the Musical on streaming. Do I need to go see the community theater do it? And I don't mean that as any slight. It's just we have everything at our fingertips.
Yeah.
So it's when you say you have to do something to get a draw, I fully agree with you, because I think nowadays to get people to leave and spend money, they can go, I can just watch something at home for free.
That's a great question. It doesn't apply to me. But
No, I do think, when we first decided to buy the building, and actually we'd been producing since 1986, but it was always in rented or donated space.
Sure.
This is the first real theater home that we had. And when we started it, we knew that what we wanted to do with it, and the only way that we were going to make ourselves special or a niche, was to do work that people weren't going to be able to see someplace else. Sure. We love plays generally that aren't completely naturalistic, that really belong in a theater live rather than in some other medium.
Sure.
And those are the ones that excite us. And I think it's one of the ways that when, if you can get those people through the door and do something that they're not going to be able to experience in any other medium.
Yeah.
That live experience, that theater experience, which is completely different from a film experience.
Absolutely.
Completely different from a TV experience.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm sure we all agree, but it is one of those things that I think, especially the younger generation that maybe hasn't got to experience it, there's nothing like live performing. It really is a magical thing. To me, I'm a big believer in we're like cavemen with a little smarter brains, right? We've evolved, but not that much. Humans used to sit around a circle and play drums and sing and have a fire. I think there's something that we need that. And I think theater, we get to experience that a little bit, that primal, wow, this is just magic. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. You can't emulate that on especially if you're watching YouTube or Netflix on a phone. It's
on your phone.
Yeah, it's what are we doing?
Well, it also goes to being a citizen, and that by being a member of the community, that you have to go out and be a member of the community. You can't be, you can be, but isolated and in your own silo and have your opinions and not deal with people, buying a cup of coffee or, their home-baked cookies in the lobby.
Yeah.
May have mentioned a side hustle there, but
I don't know.
But you can't interact with society with Netflix and chill, and perhaps Netflix is to blame for the current situation we're in. TV has existed for a long time, but now that we have to pay for every single platform, we're paying $200 a month. We have to stay home and watch Max and get caught up on White POTUS. It's like we've invested a lot of money in our streaming.
Absolutely.
Well, you look back to the Greeks. I mean, that's what the Greek theater was all about.
Right.
Was about being a citizen, about being part of a community. And that's what the stories were.
Yeah.
Is putting these moral dilemmas in front of people
Oedipus,
and saying, okay, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah. Oedipus is the Constitution.
Yeah.
It's how we live together.
Yeah.
Right? But
Let's go back to the Greeks.
Cheering. We also got through high school where they have these 1,000-seat auditoriums, and they have 600, 700 people. The weekend of April 6th, we had over 25 shows in the capital region, and there was not a single house that, like last night, where it was you felt bad. Sure. I was enormously cheered by all the attention and proper flowers given to all the high schoolers and colleges, and there are packed houses throughout the capital region. You look at it and you're like, there are tens of thousands of people that were in the theater that weekend.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, go to the theater, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, they already know that.
Yeah, right. If they're watching this, they're theater people.
Yeah.
But it really is, like you said, it's when you do something that no one can experience anywhere else. It's something that stays with you forever.
Well, and it's from the moment you walk in the door. It's seeing people out there, and even I can't remember the last time I walked out on a show, but but even shows where you're like, well, that was regrettable.
Sure.
But even there's something there. There is a spirit. There is a I'm glad I went to see. There was an article in the New York Times. Did you see this? Michael Paulson wrote it about what do you say to a friend after a show?
Of course.
And the show was regrettable. Yeah. And I saw one. A friend of mine was naked in a corner, rose out of a trash bag at the opening of the show. It was a Fassbinder play called Trash the City in Death. It was in a Lower East Side storefront theater, and it was so regrettable. And there was a staged fight. One of the pimps had a lit cigarette, and he had a fight, and you could tell it wasn't staged correctly because he was punching with his upstage hand. So it was like, oh, he's really punching. and then the cigarette flew into the audience. And I was like, this is not. And I turned to the acting teacher I was with, and I was like, what do you say? And she goes, you can always say, I was glad to see you on stage. It's good to see you working. And I was like, you're right. I am glad to see you on stage.
There's a whole, did you guys ever watch 30 Rock? There was a whole bit about that where she was going to shows that were regrettable, and she'd say stuff like, the lights were so good. It is tough. But like you said, sometimes it is just, hey, I support what you're doing. I'm very proud of you for doing something, and getting to do a new experience. And, we all, even from the bad experiences, we learn something, right? So,
yeah, especially you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
You don't learn from your successes. I mean, you learn a lot. Yeah, you learn but you learn a lot from your mistakes. I had an uncle who came to see a lot of my shows, and he'd say, that was something.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Uncle Harold. So, tell us about Dual Plan.
Sure.
What the heck is it?
Yeah. So Dual Plans, it's a weird little thing. I typically write thrillers and horrors or comedies. I have, I want to be like a Jordan Peele type. But my buddy came to me last summer. Unfortunately, he had someone in his family pass, and he said, but that means I have a house that we could film something in before I sell it. And so I was like, okay, we'll film something in the house. What do you want to do? And he first was like, I love the idea of a husband and a wife. Maybe we can explore that dynamic. So I started working on this script. I thought it was pretty good. I was going to do it from the perspective of a house with these new homeowners. I start working on it. Like 3 days later, he comes to me. He's like, can we do a heist movie instead? I was like, wait a minute. I'm like halfway. All right, hold on. So heist movie in one house. How are we going to do that? So over the next couple of hours, we just spoke about some ideas, and I ended up over 5 days writing a film script for a bunch of criminals who have just completed a heist, go to a safe house, and are waiting for their boss to tell them what to do next. and stuff starts going wrong, and people are coming in that aren't supposed to be coming in, and guns are flying, and it's just supposed to be this. What I wanted to do with it, because we were producing a film in one home, I wanted to make it as kind of exciting as it could be, but also, it's just people in a house, right? So I wanted these moments of like high stress to then go to these moments of relaxing to then high stress, kind of oscillating through the film.
I love it.
And so I submitted it to a contest, and they said, we are really intrigued by this. Why is it in one house? They said, was it a play? And so I was like, whoa, okay, that could also be a thing. And I reached out to the Wood because I had worked there.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey guys, I'm back in town. I wrote a thing that I heard maybe could be a play. And they got me in connection with Nicole McDonald, who the Company of Curiosities actually at that moment was having open submissions for a play reading. And so I just was selected, and she was like, can you rewrite it as a play now? I was like, yep. So rewrote the staging aspects of it and kind of reimagined how to get things going. But from the people that have read it so far, they say it works. One guy even said he read it and was like, dude, I love this, but I don't know how you're going to make it into a film. So hopefully it works. It's
You gotta open it up.
yeah, but sadly for me, I wrote it. I really tried to get into the eyes of these characters, right? And so there's a lot of cussing and things that I'm now presenting this to a lot of my family and 70-year-old aunts and uncles and stuff that I'm like, oh, I hope this flies. But we'll see how it goes tonight.
Don't self-censor, Dad.
Right.
They've seen it on Netflix.
That's true. My mother and I were joking because I swear like a sailor. I have a terrible cuss all the time, and my mother and
Just
father
by calling it cussing. I haven't.
Yeah, right. See, I grew up in Kentucky, so the swearing side of things, it's very prevalent in dual plans. And I was joking with my parents that I'm sorry, I swear like a sailor. I hope you guys don't pick it up from me. And my mom was like, actually, we've both slipped up because you're back home and we've been watching The Sopranos. And between the two of it, it's like So I was like, yeah, that's what happens. But
you've ruined them, Dan.
yeah, right. And that's what I'm hoping to do with dual plans. So
I'm terrible at age appropriateness. People ask me, and I go, well, they're watching SVU.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what? You've heard it all.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and then the goal with the reading tonight is to hopefully get some people interested. I have about half of the overall budget of the film pledged at the moment, about $30,000 pledged. We're trying to reach 60. If we don't, we'll work with what we got. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Whether I raise $1 million or whether I raise $3,000, we're gonna film it.
We'll make it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's your deadline on that? Because we have fundraising needs at the Capital Region Festival of Theaters that I'd like to recruit you for.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help in any way. And but we're going to be filming this in either the last week in July and first week in August, or the first 2 weeks of August, because that's when this house is available for me that we'll be shooting in. And hopefully it all works together. I'm going to pick Jeremy's brain a little bit, see if I can steal him for something. And, we'll get what we can and make it work, right? So I hope he's smiling over there. I can't see his face.
Yeah, I had to check in. I love this idea of approaching it from this specific criteria, and sort of like problem solving, and writing your way out of this box and then getting a new box.
I find it's funny. My buddy who originally was doing this with, we were going to film it last year. It didn't end up working out. But we kind of joke that like sometimes the rules make the art. Once you get someone to say, hey, can you do something about X, Y, and Z? It's like, all right, how would I do it? Yeah. But it's almost harder if someone comes to you and goes, hey, can you write me a script? Oh, well, what about? Anything? It's like, oh,
yeah.
I mean, I can, but anything, so
here's a prompt.
Yeah. It almost makes it like, all right, I got my little box. How do I make the puzzle fit in?
Yeah.
And then
I did the first bit of writing. I write reviews and essays about theater, but I did my first bit of, I guess, stage writing.
Yeah.
I was approached by Albany Pro Musica, who is doing an evening of Albany Pro Musica on Broadway, and it's just a collection of show tunes, and they came to me to do the libretto. I had done narration for a beautiful piece they just did called Considering Matthew Shepard.
Yeah.
And I had never written this, and I was like, finding my way through, like, how do you, the slight introduction and stuff. And I was like, but it was inside this box.
Right, because you have the songs that are like set, so
and
you got to fill in the rest.
I don't need to do that here. And like, is there an arc to this evening? And where do I find it? And
Did you like it?
I loved it.
That's how I feel too. Like it's fun.
And I talked to the conductor this morning, Jose Daniel, and he was like, "I love it. It's terrific. It's perfect. I just have these few notes."
Of course, that's the way it goes.
But when I submitted it, I was like, "Oh, this is." I hope they have time to find someone else. Because I was just amusing myself and sort of like, here, what do you think of this?
But obviously they liked it, and the notes thing,
and,
that's the fun thing, right?
And the notes were not what I expected. I was like, oh, sure.
That's easy.
Yeah, I thought there were like other things which I felt like no one's going to get this. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, when is this event?
The 26th.
All right.
Is that Saturday?
Saturday, yes.
Yeah, Saturday the 26th at the Egg. Back
That's
on
awesome.
stage at the Egg, first time in many years. I'm narrating and writing a libretto.
That's awesome.
I love Albany Pro Musica, and it was an amazing thing. I had one rehearsal for Considering Matthew Shepard, and you sit there and you have the book, and then all of a sudden you're on stage with 50 chorus members and these soloists who go out and just slam, and you're like,
Leave it all on the stage.
like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? It's like Dorothy. You're like, what happened? And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's just like amazing. It was at Troy Music Hall, and it was just pinch me. Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm going to try to be there, 26th
Thank you,
at
sir.
the Egg. Absolutely. That's awesome.
We have a show that night.
Let's talk about that show.
Oh, that show.
Polishing Shakespeare.
Wow, yeah.
By
Brian Dykstra.
Dykstra.
Yep.
The brilliant Brian Dykstra.
Pretty amazing, actually. It was done, they did it at Edinburgh last year.
Very good.
In a very, very slimmed down production. And then it was premiered at the Kitchen Theatre in Ithaca just this last year, which is where we heard about it. We got him to send us a copy of the script. We said, I know you're planning, because they're going to be doing the production that was done up in Ithaca at 59 East 59th off Broadway in the city later this year. We said, we'd really like to open our season with this, because it's so timely and so relevant, particularly now. We're getting a little scared of exactly how much more relevant it's getting day by day. And Brian was totally open to it. He said, "Great, take it away, do it." And so we're really, really excited. Comedies are so hard for John and I to find. Really, comedies that really speak to us.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of stuff that's just silly.
Yeah.
Which I think when a lot of people think of, oh, yeah, I want to go see a comedy, they just want to see something totally brainless. We always kind of like the stuff that we do to have something else going on.
Sure.
And this definitely does.
Yeah.
So, it's in some ways, it's kind of a Faust story.
Oh.
It's three people, like e-commerce billionaire. This is not called for in the script, but we're setting it in Dallas.
Okay.
So my character is actually laying on that sort of Andy Griffithian face in the crowd
nice
stuff, but he's the Mephistopheles
Lonesome
character.
Roads.
Lonesome Roads. But he is given a huge chunk of change to this relatively high-end regional theater that, since the pandemic, has been struggling to come back. But he has an agenda, And he's given this huge chunk of change because he wants to get a whole series of like 30 plus playwrights, brand new playwrights, to rewrite all of Shakespeare's plays into much friendlier English. So because it's too hard to understand the way they are now, and so he wants them to be really, really, accessible to the common man.
Yeah.
And you realize later that no, that's really not what's going on here. And the other characters are the artistic director, who is desperate to get any money she can to keep her doors open. So she's sort of the Faust figure in this, who's like, okay, yes, I'll sell my soul to get that cash in the door. And the other one is one of the playwrights who they've hired, who's a playwright of color, and who is going, no, are you insane? You want me to improve Shakespeare? This is not possible. But she's drowning in student debt.
Yeah.
And the billionaire is going, well, if you take this on, I'll pay off all your student debt. And so it's like, okay. And so everyone, the two other characters are really trying to thread the needle. If I sell out once, is that really going to just take me right down where I don't want to go? Or is it indeed going to make it possible for me then to do the work that I really want to do? So it's kind of, for me, it's like Inherit the Wind. It's fairly obvious which side the playwrights and the audience are expected to come down on.
Yeah.
But it leaves it open-ended. I mean, it's like,
but then,
how do you solve this dilemma? Do we have no museums? Do we have no art? Do we have no theater without the wherewithal to make it happen? And where does that come from?
But don't you know, I mean, this isn't that far from the truth. People that go, I love Shakespeare. If only, I understood him more. Right. Or if only he was more accessible. Yeah. And there have been many attempts to rewrite Shakespeare. And I think there was a program, wasn't there?
That was at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Yeah, no, it was called the Play On series. And I think this play was basically, not all the details, but it was inspired
jumping off
by that. Yeah, that was the inspiration that he used to write this play.
Yeah, and Shakespeare did it. He took
hauled
all
stuff
of his
in
plots and nothing. What is it? There's nothing new under the sun.
Right. Yeah.
We saw a production on streaming, National Theater at Home, Alexander Zeldin's The Other Place, which was rewriting Antigone.
Right.
Ooh. Yeah. It's awfully good. But yeah, and I mean, it's not that far. You run a theater. Yeah. What do we need to do to make our, season? And
how do we make the board happy?
Right.
How do we get audiences in seats?
Yeah, in community theater, and I'm always like, it's not really a business, If you don't have a payroll, it's like people, I understand, everyone wants to run it like a business, but if you don't have a payroll, we have the opportunity to take a lot more chances. And there's always coming up against someone on the board who's like, we need a license to print money. Well, frankly, that doesn't exist. Even if you schedule Arsenic and Old Lace, right? You still need to sell it. And make it worthwhile. And frankly, if you look at Arsenic Old Lace, it's got a lot of things going on for it as far as end of life issues and your own determination, and these two elderly women who become a powerful force, right?
Well, there's a reason people still do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but although a lot of the times I think they miss, what the play's
What's really
about,
going on.
Yeah.
Well, they do a production that just treats it as silly rather than really digging into it.
Well, because the motivations are so interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with what you're talking about with Polish and Shakespeare. It's like the idea of like, it's almost everyone has their price, right? What's your price to get the things you want? Everyone has one. We can all say we don't, but if someone came in and said, "Hey, $200 billion to do something," it's like, okay, maybe.
I might consider that. Yeah,
and it is such an interesting and topical thing at this moment, especially with the world. But it's crazy to think. If you have enough money, you can make anyone basically do anything.
Anything you want.
Yeah.
Do you think that's so?
Well, and
you can't buy a job in the White House.
I used to believe that.
You can.
Well, again, and part of it is what do we lose when the bottom line starts dictating artistic choices?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you need that corporate cash to stay open, but then you can't displease these people.
There's a cost to doing business, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's
when you treat it as a business,
and
it becomes
it's an encouragement to our audiences that what we want to do is give people what they want to see. To guarantee some income, but what you should want is what you've never seen.
We want you to change. We want you to come see something that will change you, that will really affect you deeply. And
So speaking of,
yes.
we want people to come see. Let's talk about your season. You're opening up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is our 11th year now.
Awesome.
We're opening with Polishing Shakespeare. We're going to be doing a regional premiere here of a play that was done on Broadway last year called Mary Jane by Amy Herzog. Astounding play. We tried for 4 years to get the rights for that because we knew it was one that we really wanted to do and that would really, really connect with our audience. 5 women. Main character is a mother who's dealing with a chronically ill child who's like 2 years old and with no idea how long this child actually has to live, and the community of women who kind of grow up around her and support her.
So this is one of those silly ones you're telling us about.
This is one of the silly plays we do. Beautiful. Yeah, when it finally got done on Broadway, we reapplied for the rights the day that production closed, and got
extraordinary.
That's awesome. So we're absolutely thrilled to be doing that. We're doing a locally written original musical this summer called South, a nautical musical, very culty type show with pirates and drunken townspeople and purveyors of antiques and curiosities of dubious provenance, innocent young sailors and brothels and nuns, and
Wait a second.
It's a little insane.
Innocent sailors,
that's really going
their brothels.
to be absolutely wonderful. I think it's written by a guy who's one of our staff now, a guy named Carmen Borgia. He leads a ukulele orchestra in town, and it teaches ukulele to people on a weekly basis. So they've been doing monthly radio broadcasts from our theater with a group called Ukuleles Unleashed. So that's absolutely marvelous. Then we're doing the U.S. premiere of a play by a Canadian playwright named Hannah Moscovich. Called Red Like Fruit. Has only had one production so far up in Nova Scotia. Spectacular show. We've done 2 of her plays before. Boy, we sure love Canadian playwrights. I've worked with several, and their work, for some reason, never seems to make it down here.
Yeah.
Into the United States. I think more people really need to discover. However, we did the U.S. premiere back in 2022 of a play that she wrote called Sexual Misconduct of the Middle Classes, which is opening later this month at the Minetta Lane off Broadway with Hugh Jackman and Ellen Beatty.
I didn't see that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's something that Audible and this new partnership that Hugh Jackman and Sonia Friedman have. So they're going to be doing. We're going down to see that. Yeah. So this play that we did in 2022 is now getting a production in New York City with Hugh Jackman.
Congratulations on getting tickets.
Yeah. So that's pretty spectacular. And then we're closing the scene with the year with On Golden Pond.
Yeah.
Because we always like to do at least one show that has some kind of name recognition for our audience. And, that's when we were doing Glass Menagerie and Long Day's Journey and Uncle Vanya.
Driving Miss Daisy.
Driving Miss Daisy, yeah. The things that, people will feel, oh, wait a minute, I know that play. I'll go see that.
Awesome.
And hopefully when they come and see that, they'll also go, oh, that was really good. Maybe let's try something else, that one of these weird plays that they're doing. So,
Sexual misconduct of the middle class.
Oh, we had a time with that.
Yeah.
We generally will get a grant from the Greene County legislature. The year that we were doing sexual misconduct, there were a couple people on the legislature there who were going, we see that they're doing this play called Sexual Misconduct, and it's right there next to the high school. Should we be giving these people money? But it all worked out. So that was a little bizarre.
Did they read the play?
No, of course not. All they saw was on our marquee.
Don't you
know?
It
said Sexual Misconduct. Oh, that's the other story. We had someone approach us. We bring in a lot of times groups from outside to do things at our theater.
The belly dancing.
A group from Temple Israel brought over a production of A Bintel Brief a couple years back. And one of the cast members in that said, there's this guy in this who is slightly disabled. He's really, really good. And I found a play that I think he would be really, really spectacular in. It's called Teenage Dick, which is it's a version of Richard III set in a contemporary high school. Yeah. And we said, that's absolutely wonderful, but we're right next to the high school, and if we put Teenage Dick on our marquee, we're going to have real problems. Yeah, they're going to tar and feather us and run us out of town.
So when's it scheduled?
Don't I wish?
I've been dying to see that play.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it.
I had tickets.
It's a lot of fun.
I had tickets in Boston, and it was COVID-y. Yeah, they canceled the performance we were going to see. Yeah.
That's
rats.
When you guys do your season, how long are your runs of each show?
Just 2 weekends.
2 weekends? Okay.
Yeah, 2 weekends.
All right, good. So I can see you at the Egg and also see
short,
good.
very intense rehearsal periods. Sure. But there are very few, except when we're in rehearsals, there are very few weekends at our theater. And we pretty much go from March until right before Thanksgiving. Wow. Yeah, and there's usually something in there going on.
Yeah, and if as a lot of the shows have gotten, you want to go the first weekend because once the show's open, they sell out.
They sell out.
Yep,
they sell out.
The word
the
gets
second
out.
weekend. Yep. Yeah. And very affordable, and they have pay-per-view. Pay what you will. Pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view.
On Thursday and Sunday.
You
the
bet
first
you're
week.
going to pay if you're coming to view it.
Thursday and Sunday, the first week.
Yeah, the first weekend is always a pay what you will performance. So,
which I just love.
That is amazing.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, Greene County in particular, and Catskill are still, they're very, very low income. Yeah. There are people there don't have a lot of disposable cash. Yeah. And we want to make sure that everybody who wants to come and see our stuff has an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and why have empty seats?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where I learned this, if it was when I was at the Wood, if it was a case study in school or something, but I do remember learning that there is a whole business model for pay what you can, pay what you want. And often, like, smaller projects end up making more money because people come in and go, oh, instead of a $15 ticket, I'll throw you $50. Like, keep doing great stuff.
Yeah.
And there maybe aren't as many of those as people coming in saying, I'll throw $10. But overall, a lot of these projects end up making more than they would have if they just set a price and said, hey, buy it.
The first show that my theater company did was Harbinger, and was The Christians by Lucas Nath. And I was out in the lobby the second night, and some guy came into the lobby, 20 minutes into the show, and I was like, oh, man. What are you doing? And he came up to me and he goes, you're with the company? And he gave me $100 bill, and he's like, I didn't have any cash on me last night. And we are still running on that $100. It was like validation that
Absolutely.
we're still like, that was 3.5 years ago. But.
Well, it's true. I mean, we literally have found at those performances, people are still coming in and paying the full ticket price
Because they want to support you, and then they also
they want to
appreciate
keep
the fact.
it going.
Yeah, and they appreciate the fact that I fell on hard times this year, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So next year I'll give you more, or come back tomorrow with $100. So that's wonderful.
And it builds a bond with your audience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. And, from a producer's point of view, it's like we opened before we opened, It's like, who cares what the reviews say?
Yeah.
I've got word of mouth going, and
Exactly.
and we already had a full house, and it's like, okay, reviews, but yeah.
Well,
reviews-
it's nice. We so love the intimacy of all the small theaters here too. It's one of the reasons we didn't, when we looked in Greene County for a space, there were a couple, but they were all like 350, 400 seats, and we said, we can't support that.
Yeah.
And number one, the type of plays that we love to do won't support that. We want it to be really, really up close and personal.
You'll be doing musicals soon. You'll be doing
Well, we are doing a musical this summer, so.
Yeah. About those innocent sailors at their brothels.
Yes, at the end of the brothels and all the nuns.
something you've never seen.
That's right, yeah. That's how you get them out.
Yeah. Well, we've come to the portion of the program where we talk about the play that changed my life. Who wants to go first?
Steven?
I think the play that really put me on the path that I wound up taking, I came to theater through music originally. I sang a lot in church choirs and school choirs and did a lot of stuff. First thing I ever really did on stage was I was an urchin in Bizet's Carmen down at Laguna Beach in the big amphitheater where they do the pageant of the masters. And did a Mall and the Night Visitors and did lots of musicals. So I was a musical theater kid when I was coming up. When I got to high school, was really my sophomore year. It was the first year that the woman who was my drama teacher through high school was at the school. And we all went to a production at Cal State Fullerton of Death of a Salesman. And it affected me so deeply, and I saw how it affected other people in the audience. And I went, that's the kind of thing that I really want to do. I want to be able to really get inside people and make them feel something. And that's really when I started exploring straight theater rather than musical theater, and really becoming fascinated with world literature. And that I think literally is the play that really, really altered my
Yeah.
trajectory.
That's fantastic.
And and Death of a Salesman. I've seen so many productions of it. Dear, dear, dear friend named Jim Edmondson, who for many years was with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and did directed all over the place. Just passed this last week. My first year at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in the company was in 1981, and he was doing a production of Death of a Salesman there in the Angus Bomer, and it was a freaking stunner. He was so amazing. He was in it with probably the greatest actor I think I've ever known, a guy named Richard Elmore, who was playing Biff in that, and another actor who's up in Canada now named Bruce Gooch was playing Happy. Show completely tore your heart out. You go out on the bricks. Have you ever been to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival?
No.
There's a big area. The Elizabethan stage is here. The Bomer sort of abuts it. There's a little common area that's down underneath where the dressing rooms and things are. But there's a big area called the Bricks that's out there where the box office is, and people would go and gather before they go in, and you would leave that performance of Death of a Salesman, and there were men and young men and fathers and everything who were like sobbing openly out there on the bricks, and you go, that's what we want to do. We want to make people really think and really feel something.
Yeah.
And that's when lives get changed. You don't, hopefully you're getting entertained too. But I think Everett Quinton, who was Charles Ludlam's husband, used to say, Charles used to say, you can't just go to the theater and walk out the same scuzz bag that you were when you walked in. Yeah. We want you have to change when you go to the theater. We want to alter you some way. We want to make you feel something. We want to make you a better, deeper, more empathic person. And that's what I love doing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's why the show is called The Play That Changed My Life, is because of the transformative power of theater.
Yeah.
And Death of a Salesman, I think, is probably the play that is more affecting to more
men, at least.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like people who aren't theater heads.
Yeah.
Respond.
They understand it,
deeply,
because it's everyone
Again,
has that. Everyone has that connection. Well, not everyone, but most people have that connection with their family, with their fathers, and it's like to view that and put yourself in their shoes and be an empathetic person for that moment. It's like, oh no, this is tough.
Yeah. Well, it's strange. It's so bizarre to think that there was that huge debate when that play first came out about, is this really a tragedy? Because it's not about someone. It's a common man.
Yeah.
It's your next door neighbor. How can that be tragedy? Tragedy has to have a king or a huge, powerful figure who falls.
Yeah.
Yes, and no. There's tragedy in everybody's life.
Yeah, and that was specifically what Miller was working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Dan.
It's tough, because I like my initial answer is like, every play I've ever done has changed my life, and that's the truth, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I think there are a few that have really had that. When you look back, and I think I've been in like 70 performances now or 70 productions. It's like when you look back, there are a few that it's like, oh yeah, that was a kind of a defining moment. And the one I think really changed my life. I'll give two little examples. First, I studied theater in London during like my J term, my senior year. Mm-hmm. And I also was a musical theater guy. I was a singer first and foremost growing up. I still probably definitely not a dancer. Out of the three, I'd say singing is kind of my thing, and then acting I love doing, but I'm more known for singing. And so when I went to London, we saw 2 shows a day, but we saw one musical, Matilda. That was it. Everything else was straight theater. It changed my life. The way they do theater over there is amazing. If you ever get a chance to go see a matinee on a Wednesday over there, it'll be basically sold out. They have these prices that are subsidized because the theaters are funded, with government subsidies, so that people can go experience all these different things. And the show I did not want to see the most on this tour was a show called Drawing the Line or Drawing the Map. And it was about a British judge who was assigned to go to India and put the border between India and Pakistan when they were no longer being colonial, And so Gandhi's there talking his stuff and, all these people. And I was like, I don't really care for this. Like, the rest of this, it sounds very fun. This doesn't sound like something that's going to interest me. It changed my life. I walked in there. It was one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen. Sweet. The acting was phenomenal. And it was just one man with the weight of 2 worlds on him, and he had to decide, where do I put this border? Who gets this port on the water? Who gets this? Who gets that? It's an impossible decision. Yeah. So that was kind of, and then I saw a play there with Rupert Grint and the butler from Downton Abbey, and they did a mafia play in London in the 1950s. I forget what it's called. If I find out, I'll email you because I think you guys would like it. But it was amazing. The whole first set was the upstairs of a bar, and they had a spiral staircase that went down into the stage. Then during intermission, this big curtain goes across the screen that says construction in progress, and Act 2 is downstairs in the bar, and they had a spiral staircase that went up into the rafters. They totally it was like, this is amazing. They had a guy get shot in the head on stage, blood was going everywhere. I was like, this is theater. Like, I only knew musicals. I don't think so. I think it started with an M. I think it was a weird word. I'll find it for you. But so that trip really changed me from only being a musical theater guy, only going to Broadway, to being like, oh, I love this art form. And then for what I had been in, a quick little fun story is I was at the time running the Wood Theater. Erin Kuhn was my predecessor. She had changed careers, and so I was running it for a minute. And at the time, I was running the Wood and also performing in the community theater's version of Spamalot. And I was playing Lancelot, and I loved it. It was a great show. But I was basically at that theater from 6 a.m., 7 a.m. till like 10 p.m. every day while I was doing this. And I'll never forget, we did a show. I'm in my costume. After the production, we're out saying our hellos to the crowds and stuff. And this usher comes over to me and goes, "Hey, Dan, you're the only employee left here. And I don't know how to tell you this, but someone got really sick in the audience. They drank too much. So I just wanted to let you know." So there I am after our performance, going back, changing into my civvy clothes and going and cleaning vomit for an hour. And that was literally the moment I said, I want to be on stage from here on out. I don't want to do this stuff anymore. And it changed my life. That was in November. By February of the following year, I was performing professionally. So that technically changed my life more. Having to clean that vomit
was that
changed my life more than anything. Yep.
Nice. Thanks, Dan.
So, yeah, that's
the joys of theater ownership.
That's right.
Yeah.
So glamorous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a summer gig where, like, between the matinee and the evening show, the cast was given chores, and cleaning the bathroom was one of them. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, those are always the fun.
I still clean the bathrooms.
Yeah. And you've got to see his bathrooms. The bathrooms are all themed and named. There's Mary Baraka's.
The toilet. Yeah, no, each one of we have 4 public restrooms that are gender neutral. But yeah, we thought, well, we'll do a little theater history here. So each one of our restrooms is named for a play that prominently features a bathroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've got
Virginia Woolf.
The toilet, Charles Ludlam's Stage Blood, which takes place in a theater where it's a touring Shakespeare group that's very, very dicey, and they're touring around, and they're in just this crappy theater, and they're constantly having to plunge out the toilet. And then Honey's restroom we have from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Honey spends 90% of that play, I think, in the bathroom throwing up or laying down on the tiles. And then Urinetown is one of our other
That's
restrooms.
amazing.
So
Excellent.
So, yeah, it's great.
All right, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking toilets with you.
Yes! And up, Chuck. Yeah, this is great.
Dan Slavin, he's going up tonight with Dual Plan, and it's coming to a theater near you.
Oh, yeah,
it's going to be
hopefully.
Filming, but you'll catch Dan in the audience of every show in the Capital Region.
That's right. That's right.
Steven Patterson, such a pleasure. Thank you for making
Thank you.
deep in rehearsal.
Oh, mother. Yeah, no, we open next Thursday, so
Thursday, the
17th.
17th.
Okay.
Polishing Shakespeare by Brian Dykstra down at Catskill's Bridge Street Theater. First show of their 11th season. Got to make it to Bridge Street.
I got to see that house, too. That's what I need to see.
I probably have a shot on the phone.
If you get cast.
We'll get there.
That's right. That's right.
That's
they make dinner for their cast.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Shakespeare's birthday party, Wednesday, April 23rd. Big Willie is turning 461 years old. We have 40 performers performing 20 different scenes. Be there. It's a fundraiser for Capital Region Festival of Theater, Wednesday, April 23rd, 6:30 to 9:30 at Albany Barn, $25. Capital Region Festival of Theater coming to you 4 days, 7 venues, 100 events. You're going to want to see that June 12th through June 15th. crftinc.org. Sign up, donate, volunteer, find out where you're going. And Harbinger opens at the wedding on June 8th. 6th. June 6th. At Sand Lake Center for the Arts, directed by Chris Foster. Thank you all very much for bringing more theater into my life, and I will see you in a theater.